take this leash and pop it. Yeah, that was not good. What's our little girlfriend up to? Said jumping on the counters?
If there's anything on the counter, no.
There you go. You're not supposed to do that.
If there's any, like, if I'm thawing chicken or something,
Sure.
she gets up there, and she's big enough now that she can.
Yeah.
He can't. He just sits there and sniffs.
Sure. Yeah, she did get a lot bigger, man. Got big, girl.
And then the other thing she's doing, so this is the only window I can spy. I'll go out the front and I'll come around here, and then both dogs come and they're like, "What are you doing out there, Mom?"
Uh-huh.
So I can't spy on her.
Okay.
But I have those bins under there.
Yeah.
And I usually like take everything off the table.
Yeah.
And she's sticking her nose in there and eating everything in there.
Got it. What, and you said this is when you're just like outside taking the trash out or something like that?
If I'm sitting out in the backyard.
Yeah. When you leave the house, you still crate her? Like when you actually leave?
I didn't for a long time, and she did great until she didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
So
she's back in it?
Yeah.
And
I feel really guilty on the days that I work 8 hours, and then I come home, and then I let her out, and then I stick her back in there to go do something in the evening.
Yeah, sure. It happens.
That's why she gets so fat.
It's inevitable to some extent. Like, we run into those situations with our dogs all the time, so try to not feel too bad about it. How has she been in the crate?
Fine.
She's been fine?
Yeah.
Good, cool.
It took probably a month once I brought her home.
Yeah.
For her
Because I remember we did the lesson specifically working on that, so.
Oh, yeah.
First things first, obviously, when you're dealing with jumping, whether it's on people, whether it's on counters, it's all the same behavior, right? So all the jumping she's still doing on people coming in, like how she was just jumping on us, we gotta really make sure we put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of people over, so.
Well, it's not that you need to have a lot of people come over, but you need to be a little bit more prepared to address it, right? Because when we first came in, she was jumping and you weren't correcting her for it right off the rip, where you need to expect, she's going to do it, right? So just be ready. Have the e-collar on, make sure, because as soon as you gave the correction, what did she do? She stopped, right?
Yeah.
So if we make sure the first one, right away when she tries it, she gets that correction, she's not going to try it in the first place. She's not going to get away with it for the first 30 seconds, 40 seconds before she gets in trouble, And then if you could get that under control, that'll correlate a little bit to the counters, obviously. And, from there, obviously, we just need to catch her doing it on the counters, right? So that's same deal.
That's the trick, is I'm not catching her when she's doing, and on the cameras, there's a delay.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that if I'm sitting outside watching on the camera and she gets under the table and then she stops and then I see it and I hit it, then she's getting a correction after she's finished.
There's not a big delay, like it's not like it's a massive delay where she gets it like half a second after she finished doing it. She'll still correlate it to the behavior, Is there particular things she's grabbing out of there?
My remote.
Remote.
This was one. The second one I saved before it got too bad.
Yeah.
Reading glasses, any kind of like rubber exercise bands.
Does she ever do it when you're in the house just not watching her? Oh, she will? Okay, got it. So another trick I've had people do before is you could almost get something, like go on Amazon or something and buy like jingle bells or something. You know what I mean? And get a couple where you could just hang them on the edges of these. So when she goes to stick her face in it, you're gonna hear the bells go off, right? And that bell will become like your no marker. Right?
Okay.
So she sticks her face in, you hear the bell, you don't even have to say anything, you just grab the remote and give your correction.
Okay.
And she'll start correlating, going near those. As soon as that bell jingles, correction is coming, right? So with these ones, that might be your best bet with that. And you could even set some stuff up with the counter, like similarly, right? If you have something that will make noise, or even if you got a couple old cans, like pop cans or something, put them on something on the counter that you don't care about, like maybe not your dinner that you're de-thawing, obviously, but if you've got something that might be enticing, put it on here with something hanging on it that'll make a lot of noise when she pulls it off. That way, the second you hear her pull it off, same deal, you can just grab your remote and give your correction for it, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of figuring out what the hack is gonna be, to make sure we catch it consistently enough. And you just need to have something that you're gonna be able to hear, right? If you're not gonna actually see it.
Yeah.
So.
If I'm in the kitchen and she's in there too long, I have to get up and go in there to see what she's up to.
Yeah, because you don't know. I mean, obviously, if she pulls something out of there, you're not really going to hear it right away, right? That's a pretty quiet thing, which is where, like I said, some sort of bells or something might be a good fit, you know? So that would probably be my recommendation as far as that's concerned. Outside of that, is there anything else that she's having any big issues with?
Eating the table a little bit.
Okay. And is that same deal? Like, where is she eating?
So she doesn't touch the cushions. She doesn't touch she touches nothing on the back here.
It's just like a corner of the table or something?
Yeah, there's like a little section right here
where
she's been chewing.
Yeah, I see.
This she's been chewing a little bit.
Yep.
And I actually have that bitter spray that you put on.
Yeah, it only works so well.
Right.
Yeah, once they get used to it, so. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all of this kind of is correlated with each other, you know, like if you can catch some stuff when you're not looking a few times, like you're probably going to find she's going to be less likely to do that, you know. You know, another thing that you could kind of do, I did this in the past with one dog before that we just could not catch him chewing on stuff, but we knew he was doing it, right? He was doing it at night every single time, right? So what we actually did was instead of putting bitters on the corner to try to get him to not do it, we actually took like a little bit of peanut butter and rubbed it there to get him to do it where we can catch it, right? And then correct it as soon as his mouth went on it, right?
Okay.
So let's say you notice this become a pattern. That's another kind of hack you could implement to make sure she realizes mouth is not allowed to go on this. No matter how enticing it may be, your mouth is not allowed to go on these pieces of furniture, right?
Okay.
So that's something else that you could do if you're having a hard time getting some of that under control. Well, I think, you know, even if we're not able to see anything today, the benefits from today will be one, obviously you know you need to be way more on top of her over the jumping in general, right? She's just getting away with it too much still. And you're just not prepared to address it right away.
Right.
And then two, continue to set up situations like this when she doesn't think it's a training session. Because as soon as I come in and she jumps on me and gets a correction, she's like, oh, we're in training mode now. Next time when you go to work this, let's say you work this tomorrow, and that whole beginning process doesn't happen and you just go outside, she'll be loosey-goosey and ready to test stuff. And then three, giving yourself some sort of signal in the form of something that's going to make noises you could attach to the things that she's grabbing. That way you could hear the second that she's doing it, and then you don't even need to say anything. Just grab the remote and just give her the correction then.
Okay.
And I think those couple of things will be good to go. So it'll be a big deal.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I've been locking her in the crate when I go take out the garbage.
Yeah.
Just because
No, that's what you need to do, right? Like, because, like I said, it's just a matter of breaking the pattern, right? As long as you could break that pattern, however you need to break that pattern, she's not going to feel as inclined to go do it, and then you're going to have less opportunities where you get caught off guard. What do you think? You look pretty good, though, otherwise.
It's like taking your car in for service. It's making this noise, and then it doesn't make the noise.
Well, I tell everybody this situation is different because, you know, we know what the difference is. We actually address the problem right away, which is why we're not seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, everything correlates. Everything correlates to each other. It's not like we have to address the counter and that and jumping and whatever, you know. It's like we get a couple of those things under control and the overall state of mind of just getting into things dissipates, right?
So if I correlate just the word no with the correction, will she then translate the word no to, you know, if she doesn't have the collar on?
Good question. Kind of. Yes, if 99% of the time we give a correction after no all the time, the 1% of the time that we don't give the correction after, it will still be pretty powerful in that moment. But the goal is not that we can get away with just saying no and then she stops these behaviors. Because if then we start slipping into this trap of doing that most of the time, the word dissipates and it becomes a warning instead of a correction.
Okay.
Right? And it gets back to like what we just talked about with the bed stay, where it starts saying, you can do this until I say no, right? Which is not at all what we want. We're using no just to just attach the consequence to the behavior, right? Okay. So you definitely want to always give the correction after. And if you're finding yourself saying no in situations where the collar isn't on, you need to do a better job of predicting where am I not having the collar on, where she's misbehaving so much that I'm not in a position to actually correct it. Gotcha. Right? Yep. And then when you're not needing to say no that much, those are the places we fade the collar out. right? Like my dogs don't really get into stuff in the house anymore, so they don't really wear their collars in the house that much. But I think you got some good solutions for working through this here. Work on it for a bit. Give me an update in a couple weeks. Let me know how she's doing.
Okay.
If you run into any problems, let me know.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah?
Good. We brought the crate in today.
Awesome.
And she's being a little weird with it.
Okay.
But it's also different.
Hello.
Her crate's at where Sarah used to live at our house.
Okay.
She loves it.
That one she'll take a nap in. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm sure this is just new for her too.
Yeah. How's the week gone with the adjustments we talked about?
Good. Good.
Okay.
She was a little. We did see the dog next door
Okay.
outside, and she was trying to like lunge and was barking like crazy. But the barking's been good, and she just growls here and there.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't a big reaction when I walked in, just that little initial
Yeah, she
does
that, but it's like a lot.
Okay.
She doesn't. I feel like she doesn't relax. Like any sound, she's like her.
Mhm.
She don't even know what it is.
Okay, so she's pretty reactive, in that reactive state
Yeah.
still. And is she displaying it like you said, you live right by the stairs when you hear that door go, the buzzer go?
Especially the door shut, it like wakes her up and she's just like antsy and like wants
Okay.
to know, and then every time we hear people walk up and down the stairs, she's like growling and
Okay.
stuff like that.
Yeah, so she's a little bit unsettled.
Yeah.
Okay. Miss Girl.
Why are you hiding?
And then you currently, have you left her in the crate yet, or?
No.
Okay,
I just brought her.
okay. So she stays at your house for,
Sarah's at work.
Okay,
during
why
the
Sarah's-
day, and then
okay.
on Monday nights and sometimes on the weekend. But she mostly sleeps here.
Yeah.
okay.
And
Except
here.
one night. And then my grandmother's on Wednesday.
So you said, you kind of fell out of the use of the bed stays over
Yeah.
your move and
Yeah.
going through the changes. So I think, like, from the issues you described last week when we were in our lesson, is it like you feel like she follows you around a lot, that she's constantly kind of attached to you, that she's always concerned about where you're going,
Oh yeah.
and generally needs to be with a human a lot of the time?
Yep.
Like
Same thing at my
99%
house.
of the time.
Okay,
Like I could even go to the bathroom. She like is like, where'd she just go?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing.
yeah, so she gets panicked when she's not with somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're probably seeing is just like obviously a little bit of a codependent mind state where she just feels like she has to be with a human to feel secure and safe. And while I think that affection is great and we can still be affectionate and have couch privileges, we also want to be mindful of making sure that she is confident those moments that we leave her alone. So we're not, you can go with your friends and you don't have to feel like you have to drop her off with mom all the time.
We were just talking about that before we got here. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing Friday night? Like, I have plans, but like, what are we gonna do with her?
Well, usually if it's more than 3 or 4 hours, right? It's, because 3 or 4 hours we'll leave her in the crate.
Yeah, but here,
Yeah, she
It's
has
like-
never stayed
it's like
here.
dropping her off. Like the other day, I was going to Cracker or something, and I dropped her off. But then I go this way, and I'm passing my house, and then I go back, and then I come here, and I'm like,
You should just had her in the crate here.
Yeah.
it would just
Now
be
at
easier.
our house, she goes upstairs. She'll sit on the she'll follow me, but she sits on the stairs, and I'll be downstairs, and she's pretty safe there. But I think
Okay.
that's because she lives there. So we're just trying to make
Yeah.
that environment here,
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah, so a lot of this will be like, I think, a couple of things that will help just her general mindset is stopping her ability to follow you everywhere and getting her to be a little bit calmer. And we can achieve that through utilizing structured time on her bed or in her crate. And the goal is not only to like physically have her in one spot, but I want her to feel better. Like I don't want her to feel anxious every time you leave. I don't want her to feel beside herself. I want to start to create a confident version of Winnie so you feel like you can go out to dinner with your friends and you're not like, guys, I gotta get back. The baby needs me. And I know you were concerned about her barking in the crate when you're not here.
Like leaving.
Yes, yeah. So, like we discussed, like there's an option of the bark collar if you are concerned about like your neighbors or her barking. So bark collar is a little bit different than the e-collar where it will automatically correct her. And it's not the ones that we're used to seeing that were many, many years ago. The newer technologies are much safer and they'll actually auto stop. So you don't have to worry that it's just going to mindlessly correct her forever every time she barks. It will kind of go to level 1, and then if she keeps barking, it will slowly go to level 2, and then it will time out for 10, 30 seconds. And if she continues to bark, she'll feel the correction. So I'd recommend maybe down the road, maybe getting one of those.
Yeah.
But also starting to incorporate in your house just a couple hours a day, maybe like an hour and a half to 2 hours she is in her crate, even when you're home. So we're getting the best of both worlds and helping her be like, this is my safe space. This is where I can go relax. Winnie, bed? Good girl. And then just giving her a spot to stabilize in the house. I do really think that that helps dogs so much.
Yeah.
So when you are cooking or you're eating dinner, that she has a space to go, that you're not like stepping around her, tripping over her as you're cooking.
That's the way you laugh.
Yeah, I know. Good. Okay. I think her mind will change a lot too, like just being a little bit more comfortable being in one spot when we're holding her accountable. It doesn't mean that she always has to be in the bed, but I think starting to incorporate like 10 to 30 minutes a day of just some time away from you, some healthy separation is good. Winnie, bed? Good. I think we create a lot of habits with dogs as we're raising them, whether it's, subconscious or a lot of the things that we do, we don't want to have issues with our dogs, but we kind of inevitably create a dog that develops bad habits, whether that's like not being able to be alone. And it's nothing that we're doing or like meaning to do on purpose, but it's just like they kind of win with that little cuteness of when they're puppies and just so vulnerable that we feel like we really have to kind of cater to them. And then they realize like, oh, I run the show here. I think sometimes also when we fall out of like the routine of training, sometimes we feel like, oh God, how do I get back to the place where she was? And then we're like, and then like the first couple times you saw that she jumped off the bed, and we're very tempted at times, like if we're leading a busy life and we're kind of doing this as like part of our life, we're like, I just had a stressful day at work. I don't want to come home and have to be super hard on the dog and train the dog. But if you do a little bit and kind of ease your way back into it, I think, like you see, she has a proficient understanding of staying there. She just probably needs held a little bit accountable.
Yeah.
So I'd start like a minimum of 10 minutes a day on the bed, just as you're cooking and cleaning around the house. I definitely suggest like 30 minutes would be absolutely ideal, but I understand if you're kind of leading a busier life, it can be harder to incorporate. But just giving her, like, taking away the ability to do that pacing, taking away the ability to be with you all the time can be super helpful for her to be like, oh, I'm not with mom right now. I'm not Velcro to her, and I'm okay. So even doing something exactly like this, like putting her in while you're cooking dinner, closing the door, and just seeing, do we hear any whimpering? Do we hear any barking? And then purposely, like, maybe knock at some of the doors or mimic what it would sound like for your neighbors to move around and see, is she super reactive to that? Is she still having a really hard time hearing noises?
It's just when I'm alone. Like, I don't want to be like that neighbor.
Yeah.
Where people are like, oh my gosh, you can tell she left. Her dog's going crazy. Because then I'm like, it looks bad.
Yeah, of course. And it's good to be like empathetic of the people that live around you because you don't want them to like want to complain about you, and you don't want to have a bad relationship with your neighbors.
Yeah.
So I think like if the problem persists and you feel like she's barking, or you could even set up like a little camera, that could be a helpful way to like view her. And I don't say that as like don't look at it at work all day, every day, because you'll drive yourself insane. But just starting to see, like, take into account how often is she barking? Is she barking throughout the day? There are ones that like detect barking. You can even do things like go out on your patio for a little bit if it's a warmer day, and just listen. Just see, like, is she freaking out? Is she okay? And then we can assess before you do take the plunge to buy the bark collar if you're still looking into that. But, like, there's a difference between nonstop barking for a long period of time, like some people let their dogs do or they're not aware of. And then there's a difference, like if somebody comes up the stairs and she's alone and barks a couple of times, but ultimately settles.
Yeah.
So I'd really focus on in the house, like even some of the little grumbles you hear, maybe considering correcting for some of that too. just because right now her brain is conditioned, noise, I bark, noise, I bark. And if we can say, noise, if you bark, you get a little bit of a consequence, that barking is just going to stop and we can better handle her, like, and get her used to living in an apartment. Because there are a lot of noises. There's a lot of stuff out of our control. So I just like take in mind, maybe the camera would be a good idea, see how much she is barking, how often. Is it at certain times of day, like 5 p.m. when people are getting home or people are leaving for work? So I think initially, like when I first came in, I gave her like one correction for getting off the bed. So she may already be in a state of mind where she's like, oh, I'm going to be held accountable. And it's not that you're not doing that or you're not providing that, but we have to look at like being really consistent about whatever we're doing with her, because she'll never be able to really figure things out if we're not really consistent with her for several months. So you consider, like, as you're working on some of this, maybe planning to leave her at your apartment a couple of days a week too. And like, it's totally okay if she goes with your mom, but maybe not every day. And start to see, can we slowly fade that out? Like beyond being a puppy, like being an adult dog now, I think 8 to 10 hours is like 10 hours would be the max. So she can hold it. Like you think she holds it all night and she doesn't have to go. And there's like sometimes this narrative that like you can't crate for more than 4 hours or 5 hours. And then the humans are like in a state of panic because we're like, I have to get home. I have to have this dog be with somebody all the time. And then inevitably the dog is like, sweet, I'm never alone. And they never get to really practice just self-soothing and like learning to be on their own. So I wouldn't worry too much about her being, if like you have a typical 8-hour shift. Sometimes we work with nurses that have like 12 to 14-hour shifts, and then I'd recommend like somebody come in to let her out throughout that time, but she should definitely be fine for 8 hours.
The stressful part is the weekends, where I
Yeah.
have her all week because she's at work, and then Sarah wants to go out. I'm like, I want to go out too.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Those
I'm
kind
sitting
of
there
things.
like, but like I can't bring her certain places, and I'm just like, well, let me ask my grandma or something.
So it really much like is like having a baby for you. It's like you have to make all these arrangements, and owning a dog shouldn't be like that. And like, yes, we look at them as babies and we look at them as our children, but we have to kind of step back and realize like she is an animal and it is different. And you can't put a baby in a crate for 8 hours, but you certainly can put a dog. So maybe next time you go out, like this weekend or later this week, start putting her in the crate for 2 hours. And I want you, like, your test this week is go somewhere for 2 to 3 hours by yourself without her and just try to relax knowing that she's in a safe space. Maybe get yourself that camera if you're worried about it. But I doubt that anybody will report you one time.
Oh, like a couple of weeks, like she didn't have the collar, I didn't have you know, and she was a little going crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy girl, testing us.
Very
Yes.
Just like a toddler would.
Exactly,
you know,
yeah.
like, let me see if I can get away with this.
And you're right, she is a very good listener and she knows what we want. It just has to be clear to her, like exactly what it is we want, and she has to be motivated by the correction that we're giving. So motivated by the level of the e-collar and understanding the rules that we're setting forth and the boundaries.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like as a young person, you shouldn't feel like you have to babysit your dog constantly or get care for them, and you should feel like you can take these like years and go out with your friends and go grab dinner and not be like,
Especially when you go out at 7, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Expect to put her in the crate for the night.
mm-hmm.
And then, I think, well, I know, if I'm home, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, it might even be good to incorporate some of the bed stays at your house. So
Okay.
we can begin to transfer, like when we say bed, that's her rest time. It doesn't mean that we have to be like mean to her or put her on the bed all day long, but I'm sure there are times a day that like maybe you're cooking lunch or you're trying to do something and you don't want her messing with Miley. So that might be a good time to start doing the bed stays there so it transfers over whether she's here or at your house.
My cousin asked me, what are you doing Saturday? And I'm like, all right, give me a little bit, because I know my mom's with Winnie, like, I can't ask right now. And I'm like, it shouldn't be like that.
Yes.
Like, I want to just be like, yeah, I can't, like, I can do,
I didn't know
go
that
Saturday.
they could be in there that long. Like,
Yeah.
I really, like I read somewhere like.
Their age is
Their
the
age,
hour.
I'm like, an hour?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? So
Yeah.
I've done up to 4 hours and she's
Okay.
been fine.
Yeah, a lot of the time as we're, like, I think you're used to the puppy version of Winnie and you raised her, so you're very much like, I want to keep with those routines of puppy Winnie and I want to let her out, which is true. We want to let puppies out and they need more frequent bathroom breaks, but she's an adult now. And it may be hard to think that about her, but she's an adult dog. So we can start pushing the envelope of leaving her a little bit longer because you do need to feel like you can go out and like you don't have to make all of these calls to make sure she is, taken care of. I definitely think like pushing yourself and just making yourself do great time, like first in the house, making sure you feel good about that, and then going and get yourself a cup of coffee or going grocery shopping with her in the crate.
That's what I need to do. I need to go
Yeah.
shopping.
Yeah. So it gives her the opportunity to be in there and us to assess how she's doing. And for the first like 10 to 20 minutes, you can even like put her in the crate, go onto your balcony, go outside, see if you can hear her barking, knock on the door, have the e-collar with you. So we're giving her a couple of corrections prior to us completely leaving. And then the crate guilt that you feel, I know that you said like you're not as worried about that, but that's a thing, people
Oh, yeah.
people
It
feel
is.
guilty.
I do feel bad, but then
Yeah.
I'm like, I deserve to do stuff too.
Yes, and you're going to end up resenting her so much less if you have a copacetic lifestyle with her and you're able to put her in the crate. Because naturally, like, we get the puppies and then we go through the puppy blues and we're like, crap, what did I get myself into? Yeah,
That was me a month ago.
because it's a lot, yeah,
My eyes out. Like,
it's a lot of work.
dude. But I love her to death.
Yes. But we have to,
Through it, and then that's why I reached out. I was like, all right, I'm not gonna keep pushing this back.
Yeah.
Like,
and we have to look at it as like, we're putting her in the safest spot possible in the house. She's okay. She's going to be totally fine without you there. And then we can do it in short bursts as you're getting comfortable with it. But we're kind of spinning our wheels if we're constantly having her be with somebody all the time. And then no wonder she's having a hard time being alone.
We're just going to start teaching some really basic leash manners with him. Just kind of start to get a little bit of attention and stuff. So I've got this kind of little like plastic pinch collar on him. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just kind of walking around the room and teaching him what this pressure means. So if he's cruising around, if I start losing his focus, he starts going that way, I'll just kind of turn, give a little pop on it and redirect him back onto me. And I want to see him start looking to me for direction with this. There you go. Good job, bud. I'm going to do this until he starts giving me a little bit more consistent attention. Then what we'll do is we'll start adding some treats in to reinforce that behavior. Good job. There you go. Good job, bud. That's pretty good. All right, okay. We'll let him hang out for a second. Let me go grab a couple treats here. We'll jump into the next step. So we'll do the same thing here, but when he makes good turns, I'll be rewarding on them. Good. Could give you a minute to eat it. Come. Good. So what you're gonna do in a second here is you're gonna start cueing him up with come. You're gonna tell him come one time. Just start walking around. As you're walking around, if you lose his focus because he tries to go off and sniff something, go back to you, come to me, whatever it is, you're just gonna give a pop on that leash and make it fairly firm, you know. And then once he reshifts his attention back onto you, keep walking. And if you recreate that and he keeps the attention on you, mark with good and reward. And if you want, as you're doing this, you could almost even walk him closer past us to make sure that he's picking you over us. Perfect. Good pop there. And then go ahead and try that one again, and if he does it successfully, give a reward for it. Nice. Very good. Yep. Too funny. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use this leash pressure to teach him to stay in one spot on this bed over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk him straight over to it and use this leash to get him up and on. There we go. Good. If he hops off, I'll just use it to get him right back on, obviously.
Oh, this is going to be good for him. Because he cannot sit still. He follows me everywhere.
Yeah. This is a very important skill for dogs to learn for many a reason. Obviously, the state of mind aspect of him not needing to follow you around constantly is good, but also just having a way we can kind of just get them out of the way is also really beneficial. You see how hard it is? He doesn't want to sit still, right?
Yeah.
So we're just being persistent with him. Every time he hops off, using that leash to get him back on. Good. And then once he does well with it, I'll go ahead and mark with good and reward for that. No. Good.
Yeah, it's like impossible to get him
No.
to just lay on the couch.
Yep.
Just need to grab a drink.
Sure, yeah. Okay. And then I'll release him off. And we'll just do that a few times until we first and foremost see that he stabilizes nicely. Good. Are you getting it? Okay. One more. Come on, bud. Good. Good. Okay. Beautiful. So we have him understanding the concept of getting on and stabilizing. So now I'm going to actually have him start staying there with harder distractions. We're going to start off with me walking to the end of the leash. No. See those little gears turning? No. No.
This reminds me, because whenever I have friends over and we play ping pong,
Mm-hmm.
he has a little bed area.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not on my feet while I'm playing.
Sure.
like this again to stay on this area.
Yeah.
But then after a while he gets it.
Yeah, that's another great place to, you know, pattern in something like this for sure. Good. So obviously as he's doing well, we'll continue reinforcing for this.
What is it that they need to be by your side?
Could be anything, just no. Sense of safety or insecurity or anything like that. Good. Okay. So you'll notice as we're doing this, we're simultaneously teaching our markers, right? So the first one is good. Our good marker always predicts a reward coming, right? So I mark with good, I go give a reward after. So that word in itself should start eliciting a positive response, which we've seen a couple times so far. No. The other one is our no marker, which is always going to predict some sort of correction coming after, right? So you'll notice in this case, the correction I'm giving is the leash pop, right? And that's coming after the no marker, so that word in itself has a negative association to it, right? And then what we could do is, as we have those taught, we could use those to teach or shape any of the behaviors we ultimately want him to do. Good. You can see right there as I marked with good, kind of perked up a little bit. He's starting to understand that that reward is coming. And then the same with the no marker, obviously. Good. Okay. And then okay just marks the end of whatever we're working on. So in this case, it marks the end of that bed stay that we're doing. Obviously, now that we have the behavior shaped, we could start to put a cue to it, right? So the cue in this case is going to be bed. So I'm going to walk him up to the bed. Bed. Good. Once he completes that command, I can mark with good, give a reward for that, and then we start our duration. Now stay is implied with all of our commands, so because we have a clear beginning and a clear end to things, the beginning is the command itself, the end is the release, okay. We don't need to have an in-between to tell him to stay there. It's expected he just stays until he hears that release. Good. Okay. Do one more. Come on, buddy. Bed. Good. Good. And you'll see it'll continue to get stronger as we condition it in. Okay.
Good.
Happy little worker. He says this ain't so bad.
Dogs like obedience.
Yeah, they like direction, you know? You know, a lot of people you'll hear say like, oh, my dog just needs a job, right? Really what that means is not that they actually need a quote unquote job, right? It means that they need to be working and processing and thinking, right? Most of the time we provide our dogs with tons of physical stimulation from the standpoint of running and chasing a ball and doing all those types of things, but we provide no mental stimulation from the standpoint of working through and solving problems, right? And a job provides that, yes. Now with your corrections you're giving, still try to up the intensity just a little bit more. You need to see with it that he, yes, you need to see with it that he actually is averse enough to that pop that he wants to avoid it next time. Next session, if you go to the pet store, get, they sell specific training treats that are like really tiny little butt-sized nuggets.
We got a bunch of bags.
Yeah,
Or a
bring
couple bags.
bring some of those with you next time you come.
They love those ones.
Yep. All right, so let's have you test him a little more now. What I want to see you do is set your leash down and walk away. And same deal, if he gets up, you're going to mark with no.
No.
There you go. And then go ahead and try again.
Nope.
Perfect. And same deal, a little less of a pull. You're like pulling him towards the bed. And it's just a pop, like a quick pop and release, then reset him back onto the bed. There you go. And then go ahead and walk away. Now, if he gets up to either run to you or run to him or anything, you would mark with no, go get the leash, give your pop, then put him back on. He's like, whoa, this is different. And then if he does well, yeah, go ahead and mark with good and reward for sure. And then you could do this a couple times where you walk away, have him hold it, stuff like that. And whenever you want to release him, go back, get your leash, then tell him okay.
Wow.
That's pretty good. That is pretty good.
Good.
Dogs are so cool.
Okay. Good.
Perfect. Pretty impressive. Now let's really test him. Why don't you go ahead and sit down? Nice. That's awesome.
Good. Okay.
One last little critique to that.
Yep.
So when you go back to pick up the leash, right now what you're doing is you're grabbing it and you're just going, okay,
Okay.
right? So he's not really waiting for the release. He's just getting up when you grab the leash.
Okay.
So what I want you to do, bed. So I want you to get him on. And then when you go back to get him, don't grab it by where the collar is. Grab it by the end of the leash so it doesn't pull on it. No. And you want to see that he waits when you pick it up, right? So the leash picking up shouldn't be a cue for him to get up. Okay, then you can release him
Okay.
off.
Perfect.
No.
Same deal.
Bed.
That's all right.
Nope.
Now, in your case, it's actually going to be probably harder for you because he's so obsessed with being right next to you, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead and get him back on.
All right.
Just
Bed.
commit.
Bed.
Use the leash. There you go. You kind of want as little delay as possible between like us like waiting on him to get on. You want to just get him back on once you get that pop. Yeah.
Nope. Bed. Bed.
And then right now you're missing the pop.
I'm missing the pot.
Yeah, you're not really giving much of one at all.
Yelling at me.
No.
So now before you do anything, fix the leash, then give your pop.
Bed.
Now get him back on.
Bed.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
And you're given much more firm with the pop also. All right, here we go. Let's do a little experiment here real quick. Here, buddy.
You're just soft. It's just funny. I mean, that's how you are like with everything, so it's funny.
Take this leash and pop it. Yeah, that was not good.
You gotta do harder than that?
Yeah.
He's like.
Here, I'll show you what I mean by a pop, right? So hold that. You ready?
Okay.
Does that make sense, right?
Yeah, it's not like.
It's not like I'm yanking your arm out of the socket,
Okay.
but there's a lot more intensity behind it, right? So let's try again.
It's just quick.
You're hesitating, right? So you're kind of like pulling, right? It should be quick, right? Quick.
Okay.
A little more. That was better. That's better. Yeah.
So quick, not pull.
Quick pull and release. Pull and release, right? That was better. Yes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just feel bad. Like,
That's okay. And the important thing to realize is like right there, like it's it's harder than you're doing, but it's still not that much, right? And two, the goal of giving these corrections is that we shouldn't have to give the corrections moving forward, right? We correct for it with enough intensity where he wants to avoid it next time so he doesn't make the mistake.
Yeah, as soon as I did it a little better,
Yes.
he instantly.
He was good, right?
Way better, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And that will apply, you know, once we start correcting for miscellaneous behavioral issues as well, is it has to be at an intensity that's more motivating than whatever it is that he's doing, you know? Whether it's jumping, barking, you know, whatever, you know? And the leash isn't always the tool that we're gonna use for, you know, sometimes like the leash is not motivating enough for certain situations unless you're like really cranking on it, which with a small dog, obviously you wouldn't be doing. So, you know, we'll get into that later, but that's that intensity you were getting at the end, that's what you wanna be feeling with it, right? And you'll notice a difference because he was good here because I kind of primed him up with it, right? With the corrections and stuff, so he was a little bit focused. When you go to work this at home, right? If you're not being as intense as I was with it, he is absolutely not gonna stay there. Like it'll be a disaster, right? Like he will just constantly keep getting up because he's not motivated enough by the correction, right? So go into it with the right intensity right off the rip and you'll get past that hurdle. Right? And this is going to be the first place we really start setting some actual boundaries in the house from the standpoint of like consequences and accountability, right? Which will help shift his state of mind overall in the house, which then kind of bleeds into other things like the handling and stuff like that, right? Perfect. And then go ahead and just set your leash down. And same deal, if he gets off, I want the same intensity with the pop as you did when I was doing it with you. Now come over here and open this door like there's a guest there. Who's there? Hello? Now, as long as he stays, I don't care about the barking and stuff, right? But the idea is he has to stay in one spot. And notice how his arousal level right there was much higher, actually, than when we were working it before. So your pop,
No.
get yourself situated first. There you go. That was better. So your pop would actually probably need to be even a little bit more firm in a situation like
When
that.
it's more aroused?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's try that again here. And same deal. And by holding him accountable for breaking the bed stay, notice that time he perked up, but he didn't get as amped up as he did the first time because he just got a correction for it, right? So you could even run this drill at home as he does well with you just walking around the house, open and close the front door, you know, do things like that and start setting up real life situations.
Okay. Good boy.
Wait, man.
Good job, buddy.